later.
Yeah. No problem.
It's all good because I wasn't sure what context those questions were supposed to be in anyway. So I wasn't really sure,
There
I didn't
wasn't
know if
any
it was
real
gonna...
context. It's just fun to shift the brain, think differently, a little outside the box. And I figured, well, you could ask them, and then like since Kay was going to be here because she came early, but we were so involved, we didn't get a chance.
Yeah,
if you
no,
ask
it's...
them off the wall questions, like Kay's like, Erica Jane, what?
Well, I wasn't sure what, I wasn't sure what off the wall meant. Like, what's your favorite? I mean, I wasn't sure what the context was supposed to be. So I don't really have a whole lot of good examples, but it's all good.
Yeah. I mean, like it could be like, well, you could ask somebody like, what's the deepest, darkest secret? A little bit, sort of a bit more conventional one, I guess, but or you could ask things that you dream about that you think are maybe not realistic, but you dream about them anyway. And, like waking dreams, like, a desire or a thing that you might say that's inappropriate, but that you stuff like that. I don't know.
I don't think that's an appropriate question.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, like a question that you'd say, well, that's a little bit of a different question.
Right.
Like,
Well,
where you come
I'll
from.
try. I'll try to think of some for next time.
Yeah. Just a question that you would not ordinarily ask. How about that? Erica?
Yeah, sorry, I'm drying my hair, so I put myself on mute.
Hello, Sarah. Hello, Sarah. She's not
Sarah.
avoiding the screen as much as she used to before. Really?
All right, Joe, I know you're on a time schedule, so why don't you jump in here?
Okay,
Hello, Joe. Hello.
Hi.
You're muted, Joe.
Hi.
There we go.
Oh,
Bye,
you have
Kay.
to say hello all over again. Brilliant. Bye-bye, Kay. Bye-bye. How are you, Joe, before we get going? How are you?
Good. I feel better than I did yesterday. Yesterday was a rough day at work, so I was pretty exhausted.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
Wow. I'm glad you're better, man. Glad you're better.
Yes, there was a problem that was not my problem, but it became my problem.
Yeah. That's the problem when you're too good at solving problems, and everybody makes their problems your problems.
Yeah, when the network goes down, everyone thinks it's because there's a network problem, but there's a lot of things that make the network work that we've got to spend a lot of time proving it's not us.
Yes. People do not understand interconnectivity and dependency. Yes, and lack of redundancy. Yes.
Yeah, that was a 5-hour phone call yesterday.
Ow. I'm glad you're better, man. Glad you're better. Good deal. You've been good otherwise, Joe?
Yeah, we've been good. We got quotes on getting the house painted. We got pipes fixed. Things are going smooth. I got my new table saw, which I'm more excited about than Erica is.
They're noisy, but they're very efficient and very handy.
Yeah, no,
I'm worried. Yeah, I'm worried about safety. All that stuff scares me all the time anyway. And then the same day that he brought this new table saw home, one of our neighbors who works with, he makes all of these wooden things all the time. He's been doing it for years. Cut 2 of his fingers off on his table saw the day that Joe brought his home.
Wow.
And I'm like, nope,
nice
yeah, nope. So I'm not excited about it, but that's okay.
hyper attention. Yes.
Yeah.
So when working with the table saw, my tip for you would be like when I grew up, all the butchers had missing fingers, every single one of them, because they still had butchers. Was a big deal. Is to just do whatever you do on the saws slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if you can have a fridge in the workshop with an ice chest, that's handy too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not the days that it was before. They can put them back today, but still, just go slowly, and that's it. When you go into that hyper slow mode, you're being hyper cautious, hyper attentive. And it's much more difficult to get into an accident when you do things in slow motion. The saw is very tempting because it's so quick and efficient to get into quick and efficiency mode. But that's exactly the trap that causes your neighbor who's used that saw, I would assume, quite regularly, to lose his fingers. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wasn't there something in in module 3, that was about like, caution heightens, using caution to heighten your senses.
Exactly.
And your awareness.
Fear. Using fear to heighten our senses.
Yes, using fear to heighten your senses. Yeah.
Exactly. So, if you treat that machine, and that's what thing, the butchers, they never lost it at the beginning of their careers.
Mm-hmm.
It's when they got complacent that they lost the fingers.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So to have that again, the soul from a lesson from impeccability point of view, it's due respect. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They can be very dangerous if you
Exactly.
lose
Not
your
can
focus
be.
on them.
Yeah. But that slow motion, going slowly, this is very powerful. Yeah. So not to make it habitual. That's the other thing. It's very tempting with something like a saw to get into an efficiency habit. That's the danger. So I would really, and when we get to habits and routines, it's one of the things to do, change your habits and routines. Absolutely do this with a chainsaw. Never do the things the same way. Then you'll always be very conscious and very deliberate when doing it. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So now that table saw becomes a mechanism for habit shifting and for deliberate conscious awareness to do every single cut with hyper deliberation, hyper awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Very profound. So if it has to be there, what might as well make it use and work, right, Erica? Serve a good purpose. No, we can't.
She's drying her hair.
Support of Erica, no matter how positive.
I'm drying my hair, so I missed the last couple of minutes that you guys were saying something.
I was just saying that, to use that saw, break habits, and don't get into any habitual things with it, to do every single cut in a different way so that you get that deliberate hyper awareness and caution, and you do it slowly. It's a whole different exercise. So you're leveraging it to break habits, to leverage deliberate conscious awareness. So now that this becomes a tool of impeccability rather than just a mechanism and another thing that's lying around in the workshop. Yeah. It's very cool. Yeah. Very seductive tool. Very, very, very seductive tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Amazing. All right. Very cool. Where are we? Which module, which session, which are we on?
Module 3, session 4. Life detective.
Yes. One of our favorites.
All right. So that's not important. Ignore that. All right. My takeaways from session 4. The first one, I have a question on why you chose the specific phrasing that you did. So the first thing I wrote down was, it's imperative to be able to let go of goals when everything changes. And my question is, why is it phrased like that instead of, it's imperative to be flexible and change your goals and adapt your goals when everything changes?
So this was in the tasks and exercises?
No, it was in it was in the first couple of slides where it's just kind of listing out, these are self-conceptions or characteristics of the life detective.
Right. Okay. So let me go and find it. I'm with you now. Okay. So say the quote again.
It is imperative to be able to let go of goals when everything changes.
Oh.
And it might have been on the very first or second slide. One.
Okay. All right, let me see, because I want to see the context that it's in. Okay. Well, it's further down.
Yeah, you're right. Where is it?
Here we go. It's on slide 10. Most important, I'm going to read the whole slide. The life detective does not ignore or downplay the tiniest point of significance. The most minute fact, which is indisputable in its consequence, leads to changing everything. The most minute fact, which is indisputable in its consequences, leads to changing everything. This change is fully respected, fully adapted to, taken fully into cognizance, and most importantly, those indisputable but unwanted or unpleasant facts are not ameliorated or ignored. They aren't downplayed in any way. Everything is shifted to take the indisputable, albeit unpleasant truth into account. This means setting aside the desire or like or wish. It necessitates the solution of extrapolated anticipation and potential positivity. It's imperative to be able to let go of goals when everything changes. Yeah. So, okay, you're saying let go rather than to change. Yes, I hear what you're saying. The only reason I didn't say that necessarily to say change, but to say let go, it is because it just makes for a long thing, because by implication, yes, if you can change, you change. But sometimes it's the requirement to absolutely let go of it because it's no longer relevant. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's the ability. It doesn't, there's a subtlety involved here. It doesn't imply that that's the only option, but you definitely need to have that ability. If you have the ability to let go of your goal, you most decidedly have the ability to adapt or shift or change it. Mm-hmm. But if I were to say it's an imperative to be able to change your goal, that doesn't quite mean that you're able to let go of it.
Right. Okay.
So it's just for me, it's just when I'm looking to conserve words, which I tried to do in an article, because that was originally an article that I wrote, and I just used the article and put it into this format. I try to say things in such a way that the phrase will take care of I can never say the word. There's no word for it. Other applications of the same word, corollary.
Yeah. Letting go of the goal implies
corollary.
Changing.
There you go. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah. Corollary. Yeah.
Corollary.
I never would have got
corollary. That. Yeah. Exactly. So I'm very conscious of that. To say this takes care of the Erica Jane, the
corollary.
Corollary. Yeah. I'm seeing the spelling, and it throws my mind off. Anyway, so that's really potent.
Just think of coral in the sea.
Corollary.
Yes,
there we go. So fairy corollary.
Right. Corollary.
I like that. Corollary. Thank you. I like that. It's just, I see this so often, how we get addicted or hooked to our goals. And when something changes, especially when it's a really, really tiny little thing, you can't let go of the goal, right? How many women get married after the fiancé has hit them? Just once, but that's all it takes. If you can't change that goal, which has been a lifelong big deal goal, that's something that says, sorry, no, that changes that goal, but they can't do it. And then, of course, they come to, be unhappy about it later on. So I've yet to hear somebody say, oh, he hit me once before the marriage and never after. I've never, ever heard that. Not once. So anyway, that's the kind of goals that I'm talking about, because the rest of the slide was about tiny things shifting it. So this whole point, I really watched actual detective shows that I really liked, and I said, why? Where's the impact? And I pulled stuff from it, and that really struck me as something that was profound. And you saw in some of those shows where it was a tiny little thing, and the whole department is saying no, but the detective couldn't square it. Their conscience wouldn't allow them. It just didn't fit. And they kept at it. And then, later it all fits, but they let go of the original goal, which was, okay, we've got a suspect and all thing looks great, but it didn't fit. And then they find the real culprit because they were willing to change that goal. The original goal was to find a suspect and get a conviction quickly and all that. So yeah, it's a very powerful thing. We can get sucked in by those goals. They can really shift They can contort our perspective and perception, actually. Not just perspective, but perception. Confirmation bias. So we have to be that's the thing, goals can be, just so incredibly influential on our perspectives and perceptions through confirmation bias. Yeah, big deal.
Let's see. All right, the next takeaway, I had a handful in this one. We cannot soften the harsh truths our discernment and insight present. That one stuck out because that's pretty much what everyone does all the time, is try to soften the blow of the harsh truths or the difficult conversations.
Say that again, please, Joe.
We cannot soften the harsh truths of our discernment and insight present.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Let's see. We need to live precisely.
In those shows too. Yeah. Sorry, with the detectives again. The harsh truth there. Sometimes, the murderer was somebody they really cared for, really liked, or they had full sympathy for. It was that abused woman, but nonetheless, it's still murder.
Yeah. We try to justify things in our own mind.
Exactly.
Just without even thinking, without consciously trying to do that. It's natural for us. Let's see. We need to live precisely. Sometimes I don't feel like I make an attempt to do that. I'm more of a precise enough kind of approach to things.
Yes, living precisely doesn't mean that we're going to be over anal about things. Yes, that's it. I mean, sometimes we can have this kind of a meta precision to say an approximation is appropriate in this case. I am being precise in that I understand approximation in this instance is enough. Yeah, it's very precise. I'm not like, maybe how much. That's imprecise. Whenever you're fluctuating and you're all over the show, but when you know what you're doing, it's a clear decision. Yes, I'm willing to accept a bit of risk here. This is precise. Yeah, when you do your investing, you are doing that a lot of times. You need to be decisive. Yes, which is being precise. No, even when it involves imprecision, as it were.
Yeah, appropriate preciseness.
Exactly, which is in this case here, it's kind of like we might as well say decisiveness. It's a better word to say, but that precision. Why I mention precision? Because there are places where we do want to get precise with our vocabulary and our inner thinking. We don't want to just fudge things and more or less. And also, I don't want to be using words I don't exactly know what they mean, especially when it comes to self-description. There, I want to be super ridiculously precise because this is power over me. In the same way as when you're coding, there's no room for error. Yeah. So self-talk, coding, same thing. Got to be precise. Got to be precise. Yeah.
Let's see. All right. Next was courage is always going to be a bit uncomfortable since it involves risk. And it tied in the next one. Discomfort keeps us alert and sharp.
Exactly. When using a table saw, always be uncomfortable. Never get comfortable with stuff like that. Never. Yes?
Yep.
Ask your neighbor if he was comfortable with his table saw.
Oh, I'm sure he was. He used it all the time.
Yeah.
Really unfortunate.
It's just nice. Sorry, we're gonna labor this a little bit, because it's such a beautiful example and analogy. Well worth it.
Let's see. Once you set your intent, all that's left is trust. And my assumption is that's referring to self-trust. If I've set my intent, I'm trusting that I have set the right intent, and I'm trusting that I'm going to figure out whatever I need to figure out.
Yes, that's a part of it. But we're also looking at it in a bigger picture. So if I'm setting my intent and I've been impeccable, this is the key though, because that's capital T trust, not really self-trust. But yes, it does apply to self-trust. But at the point that I've made my decision, the self-trust is one that I can accept easily because, well, I've been impeccable. I've done every single thing that I possibly can do. So I'm trusting myself that I've done whatever I can do. Now, once I make that decision, then what? Is there anything left to do? Kind of not really in the ordinary sense because I've already done everything I can do. But there is one single thing, and this is where the capital T trust comes in. Because after I make my decision, I have to trust that it's going to work out. I have to trust that I've made a good decision. Regardless of whether it turns out a mistake or not, I'm trusting it in the bigger picture is going to work out okay. And that's all I can do. And then that bigger trust now becomes something that's part of the power of intent, that you are adding this to intending your decision to be good. Furthermore, you're trusting that it's going to work out okay, even if it's not in the, okay, you make a decision like, I don't know, changing your job or leaving your job or whatever. You trust because you don't know, you trust that it will, and then you start to look at things in a different view, a different vein, you perspective shift, and you find reasons why it is good and works out, even if it doesn't go the way you originally thought it might go. So you get this, we now start to leverage positive confirmation bias. We are deliberately employing confirmation bias through our trust. Yeah. Right. So it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. It's a very big deal. Yeah.
Let's see. Doubt is a stepping stone to fear and stress. I wrote that one down just because I think it's absolutely true.
Yes. Yes.
To intend means to be doing and moving forward.
Yeah.
Repeated use of trust will never eliminate the discomfort and necessity of courage, but it will lessen it.
Yes. I mean, when I'm trusting now, for me personally, my life really, most of my adult life, I've always been in situations where I've had uncertainty and I've had to trust in things. And it's, I've had many experiences which I can look back on and say, well, I survived, I got through it, I trusted, and stuff happened, but I can't predict it. And I can't say for sure that it will happen again. But I'm a little bit more comfortable with stepping into the unknown than I was before, Yeah. Again, you can't ever get fully comfortable because they would just be dishonest. But it's certainly not as stressful as it may have been in the past, or uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last takeaway I wrote down was, when we're in an unwinnable situation and it seems like there's no moves left, there's always trust.
Exactly. And that one, I can certainly say from personal experience, I have been in that situation more times than I actually would like to care for to say, but every time it was magical. I've been in quite a few situations where I had really no options left, but just pure blind trust. And every time it was truly fantastic, like when we went to, that's the picture today is a reminder of that. It's a big, deep story. When we were in the desert, just going to the desert, that was a one-way trip at the time. It was absolute total trust. This was a story about when we were in the desert, the fighter jets, they used to do the ground hugging, below the radar training because there was nobody there. It was a very isolated area. And they used to fly over our house very low, and one day one crashed, and we weren't exactly sure, but we set out to go and see, because it's in the middle of nowhere. And just undertaking that exercise to walk in a desert like that, it's a life and death exercise. It's an exercise of trust. Just walking in the desert, because there's no cell phones, there's no neighbors, there's nobody gonna find you. You twist your ankle, or you run out of water or something. It's very hot too. So, so trust is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
A big deal.
All right, and the exercise, let's see. So I didn't know exactly what to do on here, so I made my own
brilliant
corrections. So I went through and I took out the conceptions of the life detective that were early on in the deck. And I pulled out the key points that I think that I do use, and then I pulled out the key points that I think that I need to continue to develop.
Ah, nice. Let's hear.
Let's see. So the first one I wrote down in key points that I do use: humble, unobtrusive, yet authoritative and confident.
Yes. That's a nice summary of Joe right there. Right, Beena? Erica?
Absolutely.
Yep, for sure.
Let's see.
And
Yeah,
concise too, we might say.
very concise. I am not known for being a talker.
Yes. Loquacity and verbosity is not in your in your vocabulary.
Let's see. Not concerned with image. So I wrote this one down. I am concerned with reputation, but I think that's different from image.
Correct. You know, Columbo is one of my favorite detective shows. Columbo was so strategic in everything he did. He's this bumbling fool, but it's all deliberate. And this is the magical thing. He couldn't care two hoots about image, but perception and everything. He wanted that image. He wanted to be undervalued. But when needed to, he would step up and he'd kind of put his foot down and, you know, he'd push back. You know, oh, I'm going to go to your boss about this. And he would, okay, go ahead. See how far that's going to get you. But he was very mellow about it. So it was very cool. So say the thing again. You're not particularly concerned about image, but you are concerned about
reputation.
Correct. Exactly. And that's the other part with Columbo. I don't know how many Columbos you've watched, but this particularly applies to him. You know, halfway through the show, you know, whoever the person who feels harassed, usually, you know, the villain is feeling all harassed and they start complaining. And then suddenly it comes back through others. Oh, you know, Columbo is like the number one detective. And then Columbo's reputation would start to, and that's when they really start to sweat and then of course make more mistakes. So yeah, it's a big difference. Image and reputation. Yes. In a business setting, especially in a leadership setting, you can't be entirely oblivious to image, but you are not looking to do something. An image here implies a falsity. Yes, you do want an appropriate image. We can't all be, you know, Columbo's not always appropriate. It could work for him, but still, you know, it's not something that is important to you. It's of strategic value and that's it. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, strategic value.
Right. But reputation is both strategic and important. For me personally, you know, yes, if you're not going, but I have to also take into cognizance how I'm appeared. I could have my own internal reputation, but if somebody's spreading lies about me, I have to take this into cognizance because that could really impact me. And because yes, in the end it will work out right, but in the short term, this could really be a big deal. So yeah. It's just why those are important. That makes the difference. Yes.
Yeah, image is more superficial.
Correct. Exactly.
All right. Shows teeth and asserts themselves when needed in no uncertain terms. So I've gotten better at that over the last few years.
Yes. That I would say for you personally, Joe, is something that is a very vital necessity. So that, you know, word in the office is, hey, Joe's a nice guy and he, you know, he doesn't say much and all this. But don't push him. Don't get on Joe's bad side. Don't be wasting his time. Don't be slack. You know, do your job right because, you know, if you get there, if you overstep the boundaries, you're going to hear about it from Joe. You're going to get in trouble there, right?
I remember Erica pushed me on this. Now, I remember a few years ago when we were in Pittsburgh. I don't remember the guy's name. I was not getting along with this project manager.
It was Nick, wasn't it?
No, I was not getting along with him either, but it was before that. It was a project at the Moundsville Frac, and the project manager, he had a task that I needed to get done, and it was my vendor that was going to get it done. And I told him, here's how long it's going to take. So let me know what your date is. He never let me know what his date is. He just emailed me one night and said, hey, your stuff is still here. This is totally unacceptable. How dare you do this? You're putting the whole project behind. And I was sitting on the couch, we were watching TV, and I closed my laptop and I was just like, I'm not doing this right now. I'm not dealing with this. And Erica kind of let me have it. She was like, absolutely not. You open that laptop back up and you reply to him right now and you tell him this is a bunch of bullshit. You had all the notice in the world. This is your fault, not mine. Don't try to pass the buck off here.
Brilliant. And what did you do?
And I opened it up and I did it. And I swear to God, my relationship with that guy was instantly 300% better.
Yes. Yes.
We never cross paths again.
Yes. 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 I'm celebrating your choice there. Yes. Thank you, Erica. But the key there was on you. It's easy to see things from the outside. We're all better chess players when we watch a game than actually playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very easy to see things from the outside, but the ability to do when we get that external input, this is something to, since Erica, Kay was, doing the task of bragging. This is something to really be proud about. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Very cool. Very cool. That's
Well,
not
and
easy.
I remember, I was thinking of, I do remember that situation, but I also remember Nick, when you first got out there, there was this guy who was like this very ambitious, somewhat younger guy who had worked his way up pretty quickly, and was in this position of management. And Joe, he was giving Joe trouble, like, not exact. I mean, he wasn't being like an outwardly rude, dickish type person, but he was pushing, you know what I mean? It was like he was trying to like assert his dominance and show like it was, it was like he would push a little bit. And Joe kept saying, oh my gosh, this guy is like being really weird. And it's, it's kind of causing a problem because he's saying these things and sort of pushing me and, kind of trying to see what he can get away with or whatever. Yeah. And I said, okay, I'm the ultimate example of do what I say, not what I do in this situation, because at the time, it was like, I don't want to cause any kind of conflict. But I said, I know that some people who are like that only respond to you pushing back on them. Like they're doing that because they're trying to see what you're made of. And if you push back, they'll back off because they're just pushing. They're trying to see how far they can go with you. And if you push back, there are some people that only respect that. Like if you don't push back, they're going to run over you completely. And so Joe, I mean, that was one of the things that really impressed me was Joe. I mean, I would have been pooping my pants, like, oh my God, I don't think I can do this. I know what they're doing, but I'm not sure I can follow through with it. And Joe immediately was like, yeah, okay, I hear you. And he started pushing back and the guy totally came around. Like he was still kind of a dick, but he didn't do that anymore. He didn't push the way he did. He didn't push the way that he had been. And I was really impressed with Joe just jumping right in.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he advanced very quickly in his career by bullying his way up.
Exactly. But especially for somebody like you, who is, you're within yourself. People can misinterpret that and misunderstand that unless you make that very clear that, yes, I'm a very nice guy and I'm very mellow and, I don't stress about stuff. However, don't try and push me or abuse me or take advantage or be unprofessional or, go fall below standards or whatever the criteria are. This is very important that they know this, that they can only go so far and past that. No, then you're going to run into a brick wall. Yeah.
Actually, probably one of the proudest moments that I've felt in this role that I'm in now. The network team is that we're a great scapegoat because we are the one thing that everyone in the company uses every day. And when something doesn't work, it's always our fault. And I had a guy come to me, I was talking to him in a one-on-one a couple months ago, and he made the comment that, hey man, I really appreciate that you stand up and you protect us from that. That kind of, that don't mess with my team kind of attitude.
Exactly. That's your number one leadership quality and role. Absolutely. That is vital. This is vital. It's one thing for you to say, okay, me personally, but don't step on my toes. It's like I can smack my kids, but you absolutely cannot. Yeah. Awesome. Yes, definitely something to be proud of. Yes. Most cool.
All right. The next one was
Sorry,
checks.
1 second on that last point, quick. If you're in a situation where somebody's kind of pushing and it's on you personally, but it also kind of affects the team, and you don't like really care, but then just you can use the fact that it impacts the team as your leverage, because I'm assuming you are more motivated to defend the team than you would necessarily be for yourself. It's like, yeah, whatever.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So you can use that, the fact that even though when it's a little bit on the team, use that to leverage yourself to push back when needed. Yeah. Brilliant. Very cool.
Checks and tests assumptions.
I'm laughing because it's like, well, I mean, IT, seriously, dude, this is news.
Let's see.
Yeah. Right? I mean, you couldn't possibly do IT without doing that, correct?
Oh yeah, that's all it is. That's more than half it is making assumptions about how things are going to go and then trying it out.
Exactly. So I was amused that you said, but of course you do this and you do it well and you do it consciously and knowingly. Yeah. Deliberately.
Yeah. So kind of related to that, one of the approaches that I try to take with my team is, make the best decision you can with the information you have now, and then you adjust.
Exactly. You can't possibly work it out ahead of time. You can't possibly, right? So you be impeccable. And again, it's something to introduce to them, because a lot of people are they get consumed in making a decision. They're trying to make right decisions. Say, yes, you've got limited time to research your decision. Research as much as you can. When your conscience is clear, make the decision, knowing that there's more to do. When your conscience is clear that you've done enough, that's it. Then you're okay. That will reduce the stress level of your team inordinately. Just that simple little thing. People don't understand what is required to make a decision. They think they've got to do all the research. No, it's time and effort. It's depending on how much time available and resources. You can't possibly do all the research and do enough until your conscience is clear. Very, very simple mechanism for stress reduction.
Ask questions. I ask a lot of questions at work.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes into the next one. Not afraid to be ignorant. I have come to accept the fact that I am probably the dumbest technical guy on my team, and I'm okay with that. And I just ask a lot of questions to figure out how much I need to know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something, that how we build respect. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to acknowledge. Plus, you're educating your team to say, don't ever cover up your ignorance. You want to see where big screw-ups come and big failures and absolutely big messes. Inevitably, you go back at somebody who refused to acknowledge they didn't know something. They were too scared to speak up, and it just made the problem bigger and worse, right? Look at politicians. It's not the mistake, it's the cover-up. Every time, right? Because they don't want to acknowledge they made a mistake. That's it, So, yeah. It's not just about being ignorant, in other words, it's also about acknowledging mistakes. Same thing. People tend to conflate the two a little bit, but it's part of the same underlying mechanism. If you're able to admit your ignorance, you're also able to admit mistakes.
Yeah, I've made some very impacting mistakes in the last few years, but as long as I've actually been thanked for them because I admitted them right away.
Exactly. I mean, it's not possible to be perfect. Sorry, it's just not possible.
Yeah, if you make a mistake when you've made an impeccable choice.
Exactly.
How can you be mad at that?
Exactly, because your conscience was clear at the time of making it. Precisely. That's the magic of impeccability, and why the program is called the Way of Impeccability. It's that glue. It changes everything in just this one simple instance. It's unbelievable. Plus, the other magic that I found, when we make impeccable decisions and they just turn out to be, supposedly a big disaster, just pay attention. Inevitably, they become fortuitous mistakes. It's amazing. This is it's a personal observation. Test it, check it out, but it's incredible. It's absolutely amazing. Like I said, you've actually been thanked for it.
Let's see. Honest with themselves and about themselves. Understands character has nothing to do whatsoever with status and success.
Yes. Yeah. Honest with themselves and about themselves. Yeah. This is one of your real sterling qualities. Yeah, many people are honest with themselves, but they're not always honest about themselves. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So please report this to Kay. When we apologize, when we don't need to apologize for being who we are, that's not being honest about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
About who
One
you
of
are.
one of the things that's about Kay, kind of similar, is she tends to begin statements, and Erica can probably attest to this. You know, she begins with, "This is going to sound dumb."
Exactly. That's what we've been working on.
It never sounds dumb. It sounds perfectly logical.
Exactly. It's that inadvertent apology. But that's what I'm saying. It's about not being honest about who she is, which is more than being somebody who's dumb and foolish and silly. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm deliberately inverting this because, yes, please, you know, I'm hoping it gets back to Kay, because this is exactly the point of the exercise. I don't think you were on yet, but Kay was, I'd asked her to make a list of things that she can brag about herself, to say, wow, you know what, there is more to me. I don't need to apologize. It's just a bad habit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I just mention it this way. Of course, we don't want to be arrogant and egotistical and overestimate ourselves. But also, it's absolutely debilitating to underestimate yourself continually and to apologize for yourself. So, you know, what we're currently involved is a study of Grace Kelly, and what made her somebody who has grace. And this was because she never apologized for her moreness, for her excellence. Never.
Mm-hmm.
But she wasn't arrogant about it. She never made anybody else feel less because of it. Never. And this was her magic. This is what grace is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very powerful. Very powerful. Very cool. Very cool. We do love Kay. I do want to mention, on Kay's behalf, that apologizing in that way, it's definitely, you know, on the way out. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah. There's massive change there.
Good.
Change. So, yeah. I love Kay. Sorry, Kay, to use an example, but you're
let's see. All right. Doesn't flinch in the moment of truth. I'm getting better at that. Trust in their own ability to put together conclusions well before the facts present themselves.
Yeah.
Willing.
That's very difficult.
Yeah.
That's very, very difficult. You know, sometimes we've got to make a conclusion based on very little, but we have to trust that. You could say, okay, it's your intuition, but not really. It's actually your ability to put implications into place and to see the chain and to see it out. It is a probability that you have, and you've got to go with that and trust. This is in your experience. You can see this going. It's, you know, like when Columbo picks out the murderer right at the beginning. He can't say, you can't take it to a court of law. He's got no facts, nothing, but just from his experience. Look, you know, the guy who's kicking the dog on his way out of the building and he doesn't even think twice about it. Well, you know, this is likely somebody who's got the character to be a murderer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he's the closest on hand, everything else. That one little fact tips the balance right there. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Simple things sometimes. But yeah, we got to be prepared to do that sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, willing to gamble, experiment, and take chances. I'm willing to do that at work more than some of the folks on my team are comfortable with, but.
Interesting. Cool.
Oh yeah, I work with some very conservative people who are afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Looks beyond the frame, kind of looks outside the box and beyond what's right in front of them. Has an ordinate. Go ahead.
Sorry, on the fear of mistakes, have you noticed that those who fear mistakes tend to make them a little bit more than those who don't as much? That obsession tends to make it worse when they make a mistake, yeah?
I don't know that I think they make mistakes more than the next
no, not
person
necessarily
does.
More. Yeah.
But they certainly do make a bigger deal of it. The person who's willing to experiment and just kind of go with it, makes a mistake, fixes it.
Yeah, I expressed it poorly. Those who worry about mistakes, it tends to be a much bigger deal, or tends to be obvious when they make a mistake. And we all notice when they make a mistake. Whereas those who it's like, okay, you know, and that's it. I was wrong, so what? And move on. Yeah. I learned from that. It's like, wow, I don't want to do that again. And you move on. They don't make a big deal out of it. And those who do make a big deal, it's like, wow, you notice, even though they probably make less mistakes, but it seems like more. I express that word. It's amazing.
Let's see. Has inordinate patience and allows natural rhythm and pace. And mainly responds. He's like we talked about, I'm not known for being a talker. I'm more of a listener.
Yeah. But in response here, though, it is also about, just circumstances and life in general. We can initiate lots of stuff, but we can also respond. So, you can put things in action like new policies, new plans, new agendas, or you can respond to the situation. So it's very helpful when you are in the detective role to be responding. So you're letting information come to you. When you're in an initiating mode, your awareness, your attention is more focused. Yeah. And when you're in response mode, you're letting stuff come at you.
All right, now we're into my things that I need to keep working on. The first one, I'm not sure exactly what you meant by it. So just outside the system.
Okay. So when you're outside of the system, you're not a bureaucrat, for instance, you're doing things according to like impeccability. So you're not going by the usual P's and Q's of the way management works and the usual system. You're coming outside that, even though you're inside it, you're just putting things from a different angle, a different perspective. You're using, like I said, you're using impeccability rather than ambition as your core for how you do things. The system typically is all about ambition and your image and appearance and, status and hierarchy and dominance and all of that stuff. But we can work from outside of that system. Like in your team, it's about respect. It's about professionalism, not about image and status and who gets the most, kudos from the bigger bosses and stuff like that. Yeah.
Let's see. All right. Never assumes. That one almost feels like an unattainable goal because everyone forms their own assumptions somehow, some things.
All right. So let's qualify that. That one I deliberately left just kind of blanket like that because we cannot avoid assuming. Really what that means, it's to never inappropriately assume, but even more so. That's kind of a to never inappropriate, but not to get locked into our assumptions when we do need to make them. So when we do assume, we become these reluctant assumers, and we know that our assumption might be wrong, and we always keep that in mind. Yes?
Yeah.
I mean, 99 times out of 100, if I cross the street without looking, I can assume I'm going to be safe. But of course, the 100th time kills me. Yeah? So I never want to assume that it's always safe. I always want to be looking. That's what I mean. It's to keep us alert. This never assumes. Technically, of course, we do have to assume, but it's never assumes if at all possible. It's the full sentence there. But it's just to get that mindset that our default is to not assume. If I have to, I'm reluctant, and I do so with full awareness, staying and maintaining my alertness. Yes? To know it's a chance that I'm taking.
Let's see. Pays close attention.
Sorry.
Yeah, you can't avoid it all the time. Pays close attention to implications. Sometimes I find myself like looking back on a conversation. I have difficulty doing that in the moment. Sometimes I find myself looking back on the conversation saying, hey, wait a minute, when you said that, you implied this. And you did it in front of a group.
Just practice. Just conscious practice. If you just keep the word implication, the concept implication in mind, and start watch TV. The next time you watch TV, watch it from the perspective of implications. What does it imply? What does it imply? What does it imply? It's just a practice. That's all. It's just a skill we have to develop. It's a very useful skill because, like you said, to catch it after the fact, not so useful, but to catch it in the moment. Oh, wait a second. However, this you can, be subtle and diplomatic, but boy, it's very powerful. Very, very powerful. Can avoid lots and lots of trouble. Yes. Everything. Sorry, Joe. On this last point, every single thing has implications. Everything. That's it. We tend to not think they are meaningful, but that's where we're such geniuses at implications. We just take it for granted. All we want to do is actually become conscious of our genius at seeing implications, but everything has implications. We just want to get conscious of it.
Let's see. Doesn't give others, regardless of status, any unnecessary due. So that's one where, like, our CIO or our CEO comes walking around or something, or wants something, you make a special, oh, I got to get this done really quick and really good for them. It's not, it shouldn't be for them. It should be for the the task that they're trying to perform.
Exactly. Also, it comes when you do, I don't know, whoever the top of the line is, or you get somebody, let's say the president comes to visit your plant for whatever reason. Do not fall and be all like over. You just be yourself and you treat them like you treat any other person. Yes, I respect your office. I respect you as a person, perhaps, or not. But still, even though I might respect you, I don't lose myself in falling over myself or not being able to speak all this. It's just having respect for people as human beings. Very seldom do people in those positions really enjoy it, and people kind of lose it unless you're a real egomaniac. But no, it makes you able to converse with people regardless of station. And it works both ways. If you can do it with the janitor, you can do it with the president. It makes no difference.
Always courteous and polite. I try my best, but not always.
Really? Erica Jane, is that true?
I think he's pretty impeccable with being courteous and polite, but
exactly. It is part of Joe to put that on the list of things to work on.
Right.
But I would say, if you were to actually, do a realistic, actual statistical analysis of how often you're courteous and polite, I think it would be way up in the 90s. Yeah.
Well, and okay, I can say, like, for me, for example, I think a lot of things that are not courteous and polite, but I have a very cognizant filter of, most of the time I can rein it in. So that could be the same for you, Joe. You might not be thinking courteous and polite things all the time, but I can say from experience that I rarely see that slip past your filter.
Yeah. I will say something longer term. It is worthwhile making the effort to not think those things, not to suppress them, but to try and find an angle that ameliorates it. Because at some point along things, our thoughts are never private. They can leak out. Yeah, always they do in some way. So if you are not thinking something that isn't, make sure it is thoroughly justified. In other words, if it did come out, you wouldn't mind.
Right. All right. 2 minutes, 2 more bullet points. Let's see. Always initiates and dictates interaction, even though they don't say or do much. Sets the theme. I've got plenty of examples. Yeah. On my team, I'm in charge. In the broader IT organization, I think I still fall into a little bit of my introvert prevents me from trying to take that role in some cases, especially when I believe that somebody else has more authority or more reputation than I do on that topic, whether that's justified or not. I'm sure a lot of times it's probably not.
Yeah. So in other words, what you're saying there is that as far as Joe is concerned, that Joe needs to raise his valuation of Joe in the greater context a little bit more.
Yes, compared to some of my more, like when I compare myself to some of my more experienced peers. Yeah.
Exactly. There's absolutely nothing whatsoever that Joe needs to apologize for about Joe. Nothing whatsoever, right? Now it's contextual. You might not be doing it on a regular, ordinary, in your wherever you are at. But if you take yourself and you put yourself in an outside of where you are normally at, like in your team environment, right, in the bigger picture of the company, in anything there, you have nothing to apologize for about who you are. Skills and experience is a different thing. Yeah. And you don't even apologize for not having those. Why? Does it mean that you can't learn and acquire what you need to do? If you were put in any of those other positions, of course you'd learn it. No problem. Yeah.
All right, the last one that I put down is able to accept a perspective regardless of how odd it may seem or how little there may be to support it yet. That's something that I struggle with because I'm a logic person, and if I think your perspective is illogical, I struggle. I focus on illogic instead of accepting that from your perspective this makes sense to you.
Erika Jane, what were we talking about? Contextual perspective, respecting the perspective on this as a mechanism. Yeah, for Joe.
About okay, wait, I'm sorry. Say that again. About contextual perspective.
Yeah, or contextual appreciation and respecting somebody's illogic because we appreciate. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was interesting. We were talking about that with diplomacy yesterday, and that, you know, when someone says something that just makes absolutely no sense to you or holds a belief that's just completely nonsensical to you, considering or remembering or acknowledging the fact that in most cases, not necessarily with BMNs, but in most cases, the person, whatever they're spouting, makes sense and is logical and reasonable and good within their bubble of awareness. So, you know, if you think of it as, I'm not dealing with someone who's just like completely off the wall crazy. This is someone who has a different set of rules than I do, a different set of beliefs. They're living within a completely different bubble of awareness than I am. And so in their world, this makes sense. This is right. It's logical. It's good. That helps with separating the crazy nonsensical belief from the person or the individual and being able to sort of strategize around, okay, how can I, can I see how this makes sense to them and within their rules and bounds? And, you know, what can I do to be respectful to them, the individual, while not necessarily agreeing with their beliefs, but be respectful to the individual and find a way to communicate with them effectively, working around the logic and reason within their own bubble, sort of.
Yeah. So, I mean, a simple way to think of that is, that's really interesting. I see within the context of Windows 3.1, that makes complete sense. In the context of Windows 10, not so sure. Yeah, just contextual appreciation, in other words. So now for your own self, you're saying, even if it's illogical, you just assume it's logical within a limited context bubble. And that makes it much easier to deal with. Now, I will say sometimes things are just even within that bubble can be illogical because sometimes people choose that because it gets them out of trouble and there's all sorts of reasons for it. But still, you know, that as a starting point, it gets us into the space of diplomacy and at least being a bit at ease. And we get into sort of meta logic as opposed to the logic of the thing itself. We are looking at how illogic is sometimes logical. Meta logic. Yeah. It's very helpful. It's very helpful. Very, very helpful. Brilliant. You gotta go. I know.
I gotta go. And that was the end of module 3.
Oh, perfect.
I'll start on module 4 next week.
Brilliant. Love you, Joe. Fantastic, man. Awesome.
All right. We'll see you later. See you next week, Beena.
Yes. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, don't go just yet, Eric and Jane. Don't go just yet. Just one more, unless you really have to go.
Well, I need to go and do my guitar practice because I've got my lesson coming up.
Just 1 minute. I just wanted to ask for a bit of a report card on how I do with Joe. It's very difficult to do the sessions with Joe in this way.
Well, what do you mean in that way?
It's so quick, so fast. And, you know, just touching without going into depth. The program is designed. It's all geared to immersing and going into depth. So it's very difficult to do it this way for me.
Well, I think it's going well. So
I do too. I'm just checking. I don't want to assume, because I do understand the power of immersion. And I do also understand that because we don't go into it deeper, I don't quite get the opportunity to check and verify that what is apparently understood is actually understood. There have
Right.
been a few times when the understanding hasn't been what is the fuller understanding. There's
Right.
been a misunderstanding here and there. I just kind of got to let it go a little bit sometimes, as you probably noticed. And that's difficult. So
Yeah.
I'm doing the best I can in the
No, I think it's going totally well.
Good. I do too. I do too. And that's why I said love you, Joe, because I do understand the circumstances involved. It doesn't make it easy all around. So it's just fantastic. I do appreciate Joe very, very much. Very much.
Me too.
But there is a difference, right, Erica Jane? There is a difference in the way we typically do. And it makes me appreciate how we normally do, even more so. So it's very, very beneficial for me to do it this way with Joe, despite it being more difficult.
Yeah.
Very beneficial. Brilliant. All right, you gotta go.
Love it.
Go.
All right.
Okay.
All
Bye.
right.
Bye. Talk to
You're
you
always
soon.
welcome to practice on Zoom with us if that
Well,
helps.
I appreciate it. I need to have my computer to be able to watch this video of the lady who I'm trying to play her song. And so it's easier to just have my stuff up and kind of go into my own little world. But I appreciate it.
Okay. It was fun. It was fun doing practice with you.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again
We'll do
for
it
sure.
another time. Yeah. All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye for now.
Greedy for more is all.